This is Raven Dana at Walking Between the Worlds, and thanks for joining me today. This is class 3 of the Magick of Birds, the final class in this 3-part series. And just so you know, after this, next week, there will be a little chat about the equinox and an equinox meditation. But today, we are getting back to our conversation about the birds. So, it used to be thought that birds didn't have much of, or any really, much of a sense of smell. And it's absolutely not true. The person responsible for the research that uncovered some of the extraordinary birds who have a very good sense of smell, her name is Betsy Bang. Betsy Bang. And she did an atlas of birds' olfactory organs. Actually, she did it for her husband, who is a veterinarian. But out of her work, it was discovered that many birds, you really have a pretty highly developed sense of smell. And the best of the best, the bloodhounds of the bird worlds, are the turkey vultures. So turkey vultures do not prefer rotting flesh, contrary to popular belief. They actually prefer a fresh kill, freshly dead meat. And they have an extremely sensitive sense of smell. And the scent of the freshly decomposing body, the off gas, is what a vulture can smell, actually pluming in the air as it rises on the currents of air. It's pretty fascinating. They can smell the sulfurous compound that's released, which interestingly enough is the same sulfurous compound that's put intentionally in natural gas so that humans can smell it. Now, an interesting vulture fact is that when there was a gas leak around a natural gas area, that the engineers realized that they could find the leak by watching the local vultures. They would hover, they would circle around the area where the leak was, or they would land near the leak. And so they, again, the bloodhounds of the bird world. So they have served some very useful purposes in being able to track and find the leaks because they think there's a meal there, right? They have very large olfactory organs, which also means they also have a higher number of what are called mitral cells in the brain that relate to the sense of smell. And this allows them to recognize many, many different chemical scents and to identify them clearly. They can track plumes of odor from a carcass while gliding hundreds of feet above the earth, which is astonishing. Think about that, to be able to smell something from hundreds of feet above the earth. They are, not only are they the bloodhounds of the bird world, but they also are the cleaner uppers, unlike rats or dogs or mice that actually can spread contagion. The very powerful gastric juices of the vultures will kill contagion, right? And turkey vultures can also vomit up to 10 feet away. That's a great way to get rid of a predator, puke on them. And they also poop an antiseptic on their legs. So again, contrary to popular belief, between their powerful stomach acids and their antiseptic poop and their desire for a fresh kill, they're very clean birds. Even their anatomy allows them to stick their head in a carcass and come out pretty clean. That's why they have kind of baldy heads. Helps to keep them clean. And it definitely keeps us humans healthy because they, like I said, they're the cleanup crew. They'll go along and pick things off and eat them, usually before they rot, because like I said, they prefer a fresh kill. They're not a fan of decomposing corpses, but if it's all they got, yeah, they'll eat it. But it's not high on their list of snacks. All right. Now, other birds that have a very good sense of smell are seabirds. So the albatross, for example, has a very well-developed sense of smell. They ride above the air, scenting the mix of chemicals that tells them there's food below, right? One particular chemical called DMS, the one that is responsible for that kind of briny scent of the sea and the briny scent of an oyster when you have a fresh oyster. It's not only a signal for feeding, it's also the reason why many seabirds end up consuming plastic that kills them. It's because the many plastics emit the same scent, that DMS, and it creates a chemical booby trap, right? The birds will scent it, they'll eat it, and it will kill them. So it's really unfortunate. Seabirds actually also share information with each other about where to find prey. One of the most remarkable seabirds is the cormorant. The cormorant creates a floating raft in the sky, right? A number of cormorants will kind of float the currents of air together, and they will point towards, they'll turn to face where the scent is coming from. So when they find some food, when they find something to eat, other birds that are watching them can also follow their lead and find as well. They become a living compass in the air, essentially, and they're great at finding food that way. Now, the seabirds are not the only birds that use their sense of smell. Some normal backyard kind of birds also use their sense of smell pretty well. Starlings, for example. Starlings have such a developed sense of smell that they're able to distinguish between different types of plants, and they use certain plants to fumigate their nests during nesting to keep away parasites and other things that might harm their young. Now, what's interesting about that is that their distinctive ability to, at least this is what the scientists think, that they think that their ability to discern between these plants actually only is strong when they are in fact nesting. That may be true, or it may be that they're just not all that interested when they're not nesting. I don't know. I'm just saying. The theory is that they can only scent these plants around the time they're nesting because they use them in order to keep their nests pest-free. So again, I think it's pretty remarkable. All right, puffins. Wow, I had no idea puffins have such an extraordinary ability to scent, to smell, that they can, I'm going to read this, they have the ability to find their colony by scent alone over 500 miles away, up to 500 miles away. Think about that. They can smell their colony as much as 500 miles away. That's some serious nose power. That's like, wow. I mean, just think about that for a second. Anyway, okay, it does kind of boggles the mind, right? Now, finches, another common bird, they use their sense of smell to detect predators. So they can scent the predators on the air before they can see them. And they also use scent to locate food and to navigate. And many birds, many small birds actually use their sense of smell to navigate because they know the terrain and they know what the terrain smells like. So all finches, by the way, also use their sense of smell to find burrows, which I think is fascinating. All right, birds and their noses. Who'da thunk it, right? It wasn't high on my list of things that I ever thought about, how birds use the sense of smell, but it's fascinating and it's wonderful. Even more interesting is how birds use tools. Now, again, when we think of tool-using creatures, birds are typically not high on the list. But it is amazing to discover how many birds actually use different kinds of tools. Herons, for example, use bait to lure minnows to the surface of the water so they can eat them. They might use a dead insect, or they might use a piece of leaf, or they might use, right? But they deliberately use tools to bait their prey to make them rise to the surface so they can have a meal, right? Gulls, seagulls, drop clams to crack their shells, right? It's not really a tool, but there are birds who, for example, will pound things with a rock, like a nut. They'll pound a nut with a rock to crack the shell. Clearly, it's tool using. Green jays and nuthatches use twigs to probe trees, to find insects, and there are also birds who use, let me see what they're called, curlews. Curlews use pieces of coral to strike and break the shells of eggs that they steal from other birds. So here's a very particular one. There is a particular type of crow called the New Caledonian crow, and it is the only species other than humans to make and use hook tools, right? Hook tools. So these crows make and keep arsenals of sophisticated tools that have hooks on the end, and including tools that have several different components or elements. In other words, they have to build the tools from the materials around them. What that means is that they can imagine a completed product from looking at the tools, from looking at the items in their environment. This is a feat that's only attributed to humans and apes, by the way, until this discovery. So even crows in captivity with no training have worked together, have cooperated to build tools that contain 3 or 4 parts so that they can toggle things together and use these tools to gain access to food, or to unlock a cage, or to reach something to play with. Right? It's pretty remarkable. Okay. The accomplishment of assembling tools with 3 or 4 parts is equivalent to what a 5-year-old human can do. So again, it's kind of cool. The strangest tool users are firebirds, and basically they're not called firebirds. They are typically hawks and other raptors who fly at the edge of a forest fire, and they will pick up a twig that's smoldering, and they'll fly to an area that's dry, and they will drop it. Now, this behavior was observed for a long time before researchers figured out that they were actually starting fires. And there are quite a few raptors who follow the front edge of a burn because the small things, the voles and the mice and the little creatures, they run ahead of the fire, and then the raptors can catch a pretty good meal. Well, they've discovered that if they pick up a burning twig, that they can carry it to a dry area, drop it, start a fire, and chase out their prey. So it's very interesting that that these birds have discovered how to do this, or that they do it at all. Harris hawks are ones that do that. All right. Kestrels, hawks, buzzards, kites, falcons, and other raptors have all been seen using this technique. It is called pyrrhic carnivory. Pyrrhic carnivory, right? Using fire to have the carnivores get their meals. It is the first known use of fire used as a tool by any species other than humans. All right. Another thing that, if you aren't already in awe and wonder over the capabilities of birds, another thing that humans once thought birds were incapable of was true cooperation, that they were more competitive with each other, that they more staked out their territories and that kind of thing. And while that is certainly true, and it's also true among humans, it's equally true that quite a few species of birds cooperate not just among the species, but with each other for an end or a goal. And birds forage together. Let's see, pelicans. Pelicans synchronize their movements around a school of fish, driving them into shallow water, right? So they coordinate with each other, they synchronize their movements, and they drive the fish into shallow water so all of the pelicans could go down and have a meal. Harris hawks hunt in family packs to take down larger prey, like a jackrabbit, for example. So birds can operate in packs. Raven pairs work together to distract, for example, a nesting bird, so while one has the bird occupied, the other one can steal the egg. Now, it's also common for cooperative foraging to exist among species when the area is kind of low on food. So this is something that occurs in Australia, that has been observed in Australia. So rather than becoming more competitive, some species of birds become more cooperative, and they work together to find their prey and to attack their prey. So it's something, again, that humans thought, well, birds don't do that, but oh, yes, they do. All right. Birds of play. We all know that dogs play and cats play and we play. And people who have had parrots know that parrots play. But it wasn't that long ago that it was discovered that most birds engage in play. Some are more playful than others, but birds do play. They engage in what we would call games, for lack of another way to put it. So birds play. Ravens, for example, they'll roll in the snow. They dive for pleasure. They play dead. They'll fall dead in the middle of a game and not move. They trick each other. They hide things from each other. They will pull the tail of a cat or a dog and then fly away. Ravens are also known to hang out around wolves. They kind of pair up with wolves, and a lot of times they can be seen sharing a kill, right? They will also play with twigs. They'll chase hawks and try to land on their back. They hang upside down for fun. If you provide them with a swing, they'll swing. They swing on their own if they have something to swing on. They'll even toss and catch a ball in the air, even while laying flat on their backs, or a ball-like thing, right? Because it's fun, right? They're known to hang out with and play with wolves, as I've said, and they are among the most playful of animals, right up there with apes, dolphins, and parrots. Play, for any species of bird, is a very risky endeavor for two reasons. It requires energy, and it makes them vulnerable. When you're in the middle of a game and you're distracted, it's easier for prey to find you. It's easier for you to get eaten. And yet, birds play. And we have to ask the question, well, how can that be? Why is that? Are birds more intelligent because they play, or do birds play because they're more intelligent? Well, we don't know. But we do know that they play, and quite a few species of birds play quite a bit. So birds not only live in the present moment, which is something else that was once thought by humans, that birds don't have the capacity for play, for strategizing, for cooperating, but they definitely do. They can think ahead. They can anticipate what's coming next. And they can even remember each other as individuals. Many species of birds also remember the faces of humans and remember them for many years. Crows, ravens, magpies, starlings, blue jays, right? So again, corvids tend to have a little higher up the ante. They're a little more playful and a little more noticing of their surroundings, right, than some of the other birds. But many, many birds play, and many birds have extensive memories that allow them to think ahead, which is something that, again, we egocentric, human-centric beings think we somehow win the prize on all these fronts, and we definitely do not. We share these traits with the bird world as well as with many other animals, and I'm sure that as time goes on, we're gonna recognize, hopefully, that we're not really the king of the hill. that what we really are is one of many who are designed to cooperate together to help each other, to keep the place going. And hopefully that'll happen before we ruin the planet, but that's a conversation for another day. All right, some birds like to hitch rides. They'll hitch rides on other birds, on ice floes, on passing cars and trucks, right? Some drop and catch their food just for fun, over and over and over again. Some toss pebbles for fun. Some play with sticks. Birds engage also in play with other animals, right? Birds will play with cats, they'll play with dogs, they'll play with whoever's handy to play with, quite frankly. So again, it's a very cool thing that was not thought about that much until pretty recently. All right, the largest bird in North America, it is the California condor. Wingspan of about 9.5 feet. That's a big bird. Body weight about 20 pounds at 9.5 foot wingspan. They live about 60 years, and they may live longer, but we know for sure they've been tracked for at least 60 years. They mate for life. They are very, very intelligent. They're very playful. They're very curious. And there have been documented cases, listen to this, there have been documented cases of reproduction by parthenogenesis, which basically means the females of this species have been known to reproduce without the help of a male, aka a virgin birth. Who'd have thunk it? Okay, so the largest bird in North America, California condor, 9.5 foot wingspan, about 20 pounds, really intelligent, curious, playful, smart, lifespan of at least 60 years, not as long-lived in captivity, by the way, between 35 and 45 years in captivity. They don't like being captive. They're remarkable birds. They're remarkable birds, and they're enormous. So there are also not that many of them left on the planet, and it is quite a fine and a jail sentence to harm one these days. But they were down to a very small number at one point, and now they're starting to come back up because they're protected. All right. Oh, my kid wants my attention. I hear you. We're talking about birds, so I know you're interested. One thing I'm going to encourage you to play with is the idea that we can borrow from the birds. We can, in inner journeys, in meditations, we can imagine ourselves to participate in the qualities that birds have. So I'm just going to read you some examples. If you need clarity, borrow the hawk's excellent eyesight. If you're looking for peace, for calm, dive into the inner peace of a dove. If you want to get a message to or from a deceased loved one, reach out to a cardinal or a crow, known to be message bearers between the worlds. If you want to boost your intuition and knowledge, imagine yourself as an owl. Fly with the owls and see what that brings you. If you need to see details that you keep missing, borrow that keen vision from the eagle. Fly as an eagle and see if you can notice the details you've been missing. Listen as a great horned owl and hear what's been hiding that you haven't noticed. So there are plenty of ways that you can borrow from the world of birds to relate to them a little bit differently, to enhance your own abilities. And I'm going to close this session by just reading you a few of the names of the ways that different birds in groups are categorized. Like, what are they called, right? We know that it's a murder of crows, right? But listen to some of these. A raft of ducks, a convocation of eagles, a charm of flinches, a gaggle of geese, a colony of gulls, a kettle of hawks, a sedge of herons, a scold of jays. I love that name. It's what they do, right? They scold. A bevy of larks, a congregation of magpies, a parliament of owls. I love that. Think about that. A parliament of owls. A pride of peacocks, a squadron of pelicans, a bouquet of pheasants, right? You can just see their tails. A bouquet of pheasants. A congress of ravens. It's also called an unkindness of ravens. A host of sparrows, also called a tribe of sparrows. A gulp of swallows. I think that's funny. A wedge or a team of swans. A posse of turkeys. A wake of vultures. I love that. And a descent of woodpeckers. All right, I hope you've had fun with the bird class and have learned a few things and developed a little more respect and appreciation for the world of birds and for all of the tremendous skills that they have and the advanced ways that they cooperate and do things and play and hunt and live. And we don't think about it very much. We think of birds off tweeting at the sunrise, and we don't think much about that again. So I'm encouraging you to go play in this arena and develop your skill at connecting and communicating with the world of birds. I will be putting up another meditation later on, either tonight or tomorrow, related to utilizing the skills of birds for something in your life that you're looking for. And again, soon we will be coming up on the equinox, and I'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in today with this class. I hope that you have had a good time, and I'll let you know what's coming up next. There will be some classes coming up in the spring and summer. So if you have any questions, you know where to reach me. If you have any comments, you know where to reach me. And until then, thank you. This is Raven Dana, walking between the worlds. See you later.